Cosmic Orange. Some will love it, some will hate it, some will slap a green case on it and call it Master Chief. But me, I love it, mostly. And Apple's new tech woven case in blue has really grown on me too. It feels really good in the hand and it looks nice to boot. With the case off, the phone becomes simultaneously incredibly flashy with that bright orange color, but also almost so plain, especially by Apple standards. There's no luxurious element here, no polished titanium or stainless steel sides. Instead, it's this plain, unabashed colored aluminum, a material that for years has been mainly reserved for the lower tier iPhones. But now with the iPhone Air, Apple was able to throw all of their high-class, premium design into a single device, making it just as much a fashion accessory as it is a phone. The 17 Pro doesn't look pretty. If anything, it's somewhat industrial and really doesn't compare to a lot of previous iPhone designs in my opinion, but it is more practical. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and I've been using the iPhone 17 Pro for about a month now, and there's a good few things I want to talk about, particularly with me coming off the iPhone 15 Pro Max, not the 16 Pro. For these sorts of videos, I like to take a practical perspective when it comes to recommending phones like this, and frankly the practical answer is that this phone probably isn't worth buying for most. Though, if you're watching this video, you're already maybe not a part of most people. Most people don't need this phone, most people don't need triple cameras, most people should get the cheaper one. But if you're more of a pro user, then maybe you ought to buy a pro iPhone. About a month in, I think this is a phone worth buying for those who want it and can afford it. But there are flaws, and some of them do concern me. And it's also a phone you may not need yet. For me, I could have used my 15 Pro Max another year, and I would have been happy. It's got great cameras still, the battery life was easily getting me a day no problem. I used the phone for 2 years, and now my brother's probably gonna buy it off of me, upgrading from, funnily enough, my old 13 Pro that he's been using for the past few years. If you're on an older Pro iPhone, going to the 17 Pro might seem sort of appealing, but if your phone's still doing well for you, your battery is solid, performance is good, I definitely wouldn't blame you for wanting to wait another year. So let's take some time today and talk about Apple's latest and greatest iPhone, one that finally puts function over form, for both better and for worse. There's really two sides to how I'm approaching this video. The first is your standard review. Is the iPhone 17 Pro and 17 Pro Max worth buying, and do they live up to the hype? The second is a bit more abstract and concerns more what this iPhone really represents for Apple, with this apparent major shift in how they're making their phones moving forward. Because unlike every other Pro iPhone Apple's ever made, the 17 Pro doesn't feature what I would consider an overtly premium design. Part of this has to do with how Apple's trained us to see aluminum as almost this lesser material to something like stainless steel or titanium, which isn't necessarily fair. But Apple seemingly poured their focus on building their most premium design with the iPhone Air, which retains the titanium. That phone is truly beautiful, a word I simply would not use to describe this phone, even if I still really like the design. It's more industrial almost, and maybe even a bit more pro, just in a different way than we're accustomed to. Of course, one of the most pro features of this new phone is the ability to record in ProRes RAW, which makes for some absurdly large file sizes, and it's always important to have enough storage, which is where today's sponsor comes in, Ugreen. This is the Ugreen NAS DH2300. NAS stands for Network Attached Storage, which allows you to essentially have your own personal cloud storage hub with 2 of your own hard drives, making for up to 60 terabytes of fully local and private data. After a straightforward setup process that took maybe 10 minutes and involved little more than popping in a couple third-party hard drives, the NAS DH2300 now lets me access my files anytime, anywhere, and from any device, all with 0 monthly fee, and it's all based entirely at home on my own network. Equipped with a gigabit network port providing speeds up to 125 megabytes per second, file transfers are incredibly quick, so much faster than uploading to something like Google Drive. You can easily automatically back up your iPhone photos and Time Machine on your Mac, so you never have to worry about losing anything. And with RAID redundancy support, your data is still safe even if one of the drives fail. Multiple people can also share the same NAS with custom permissions, and connecting is as simple as just tapping your phone with NFC to log in. So if you're tired of paying for iCloud or Google Drive every month and want a better, safer, and completely private local data backup solution, definitely check out the Ugreen NAS DH2300 using the link in the description below and code DH2300 off to get 20% off of your purchase. That's the same price it'll be on Black Friday, by the way, so make sure you lock down your data and pick one of these up today. Huge thank you to Ugreen for helping to make this video possible and for sending this out to me, because it is a genuinely fantastic product that I plan to continue using myself. Again, NAS DH2300, link in the description description, and now back to the review. Let's kick this off with taking a closer look at the hardware I have here in my hands. It's unique, but also familiar, but also really out there by Apple's standards. In the very least, it's undeniably different, and after the past half-decade of very similar-looking designs, this new camera plateau does achieve in giving the 17 Pro some character. I also appreciate that the bump has purpose. Apple's cramming as much internals up there as they can. It feels like more than just change for the sake of change, as we have too often seen with certain design elements in the past, like Apple flipping how their cameras are oriented and even the move to titanium. Speaking of which, after 2 years of Apple boasting about how premium and pro their titanium builds were, yeah, it's gone altogether, at least with the Pro. We've now got an aluminum unibody build that makes up not only the frame but also much of the back as well, with an opening for a second piece, a separate ceramic shield that allows for MagSafe and wireless charging. The back being mostly aluminum should make for better durability, at least in theory. There's less surface area that's vulnerable to cracking after all, but as you might already know, this phone does seem almost shockingly prone to cosmetic damage, and it all comes down to the colored aluminum finish. There's only 3 options here, orange, silver, and dark blue, and no black does feel a bit odd, but it might have something to do with just how easily the paint can be scratched off, and it does really seem to happen easily. The actual display itself is more impressive than ever when it comes to durability. The tests from Jerry Rig Everything showed that very clearly, but that aluminum backing, without much effort, you'll see a whole lot of wear and tear real quick, unless maybe you have the more natural silver, where scratching won't be nearly as obvious. The good news here is that if you use a case and are relatively careful, you should be fine. Or at least that's what I expected to say here, but it turns out that Scratchgate is not only very real, but can potentially happen even if you are using a case, at least in my own experience. I've been using this phone almost always inside the tech-woven case from Apple, and I've still got scratching on the corner of the phone. While I have dropped it once or twice, the case should have protected it, and my best guess is that the scratches are actually coming from the action of pushing the case on and off, as I have done too many times while filming this phone throughout the last month, and this probably is what's causing the scratching. And it's also possible I've got some small ones around the camera plateau as well, which seems to be particularly susceptible. The whole situation actually reminds me of the iPhone 5 in black and slate. That phone would get chipped up extremely easily, and I have a feeling this phone might look probably not that bad, but for some people could look pretty rough within a year or two. So if it's something you are concerned about, I would go for the silver color, since I don't think the scratches will be very obvious. The display, however, is, again, really dang impressive, even avoiding the infamous scratching at a level 6 and grooves at a level 7. I haven't been using a screen protector at all, which normally I would put on day 1, but over a month in, maybe there's some light scratches, but honestly it's looking really good, and it's done far better than past iPhones that I've dared to use unprotected. I've been careful, relatively, sure, but Apple's put a lot into this screen and their ceramic shield. It's all quite impressive, at least again from the front. The ceramic shield on the back has this iPhone feeling a bit less seamless than we're accustomed to. You can feel the gap between the aluminum and the glass with your finger, and even kind of pick at it if you want to. There's something about this design that lacks the level of refinement and polish that I think we're used to from Apple, but some scratching here and there, or not having a polished high-grade titanium frame, isn't going to actually affect much when you're using the phone. This is a Pro iPhone, it's focused on performance, not looking pretty. Sure, this runs in contradistinction to literally every single Pro iPhone that's come before it, but Apple has finally put function over form, and I'm kind of totally here for it. Yeah, it scratches easily, I mean, who cares? I'm focused on actually using the phone. Except I don't really think that, because it does bother me when I, get scratches on my phone. It's just a different direction for Apple, I would say, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, this doesn't give Apple a pass for the fact that this phone can scratch so easily, but it maybe helps show where their focus was for it. This year, the big 2 upgrades are performance and photography. The design is less premium than the iPhone Air and not all that special even compared to the iPhone 17, but it does bring far better thermal management, which in turn will result in better sustained performance. The iPhone Air might also have the A19 Pro chip and 12GB of RAM, but the 17 Pro not only has the best version of that chip, but also, of course, this build specifically designed around it. This makes the 17 Pro more pro than ever before, but funnily enough, I do kind of have to wonder what the point of this all is, at least right now. You're going to be hard-pressed to find too many scenarios where you can actually push this phone to its limits, but at least we're looking at some seriously strong longevity, and as Apple no doubt pushes out more advanced AI features and whatnot, maybe that power will get better utilized. Side note, while we do have the fancy vapor chamber and everything for cooling, that doesn't mean this phone can't get hot. There have been a few times, often when I was doing rather mundane tasks, where it did feel quite warm, nothing uncomfortable, and it was infrequent, but don't expect this this phone to be super cool all the time, it can heat up. What is genuinely great and very pro is how Apple is maximizing the battery life. We've seen a large jump this year in video playback over the 16 Pro, and it's going to be substantially better than the iPhone Air. I've found that it's done quite well for me, though there's been the odd day that it's drained a lot quicker than expected. I think Apple must be doing something to specifically increase power efficiency during video playback, because I'll often have YouTube just playing on my phone, sometimes for hours while I'm working and the like, and the phone barely seems to drain battery. But then I'll play a game like Balatro for a while or even browse Reddit, and suddenly the phone doesn't seem nearly as impressive. It's still the best battery in a phone that I've ever used, and noticeably superior to the 15 Pro Max that I have been using the past couple years, but it hasn't blown me away quite to the same point that Apple's numbers sort of implied it might. Still, if these phones don't have the best performing batteries on the market, at least relative to their physical capacity, they've got to be dang close. And I've got the smaller 17 Pro too. The Max is just gonna be beastly, no doubt. And it's impressive that this significantly smaller phone, compared to my 15 Pro Max, can get many more hours of battery life. It has been a bit of an adjustment, I will admit. Like last year, the 17 Pro comes in at 6.3 inches and the 17 Pro Max 6.9 inches, whereas older Pro iPhones were 6.1 and 6.7 inches. I did not get the Max because almost 7 inches is just too tough to wield for me, but I was wary about going to something smaller too, because I did quite like the size of my 15 Pro Max. So far though, it's been pretty good. 6.3 inches is definitely a lot easier to use one-handed, and while I do miss everything being a bit bigger, especially if I'm watching YouTube or whatever, it hasn't been nearly the compromise I thought it might be. If anything, I'm sort of appreciating the more compact device. For yourself, if you're looking to get the 17 Pro, I would try both size options in store to see which better suits you. Outside of the larger display and battery in the Max, both phones are completely identical. The screen itself is also great, by the way, very pro, with that beautiful and bright high-resolution AMOLED display running at 120Hz with ProMotion. But this is a unique year, where even the base model 6.3-inch iPhone 17 also has a display that is just as pro as does the 6.5-inch iPhone Air. Yeah, funnily enough, I think 6.5 inches would have been a more ideal size for me, but of course it's only on the iPhone Air, and I don't want the iPhone Air because one camera. Coming with at least 256 gigabytes, the 17 Pro starts at $1,100 and the 17 Pro Max $1,200. This is a lot of money for any phone, but about on par with what Pro iPhones have been costing for a long time. I will say that the 256 gig iPhone 17 at $800 is easily the best value iPhone Apple has right now, and I would recommend it the most out of the current lineup. But if you want the third telephoto camera lens and that pro performance, the 17 Pro is the one to go for. This review, compared to some of my previous on the new iPhone, feels a bit different to me. It's not like most other reviews I've done because I'm coming off the 15 Pro Max, not the 16 Pro. I skipped that phone last year due to kind of just feeling burnt out on iPhone. I did a whole video on it, and just so unexcited about how little was changing from the phone I already owned. And the 16 Pro was a very small upgrade, even by recent iPhone standards. This means in moving to the iPhone 17 Pro, there are some new features for me that can be credited to the previous generation. But I think this might actually be a very good thing, because the reality is that most people do not upgrade every year. I feel like most I know personally are willing to wait at least 3 to 4 years, if not longer. Getting a more substantial jump in feature set because I skipped a year truthfully better represents the more typical user experience. So things like the camera control button, it's completely new to me, just as it will be for most new users of these iPhones, and so I will talk about it at least a little. Among everything else the 16 Pro brought, which includes, let me see here, there was the slight display increase, we mentioned that. The camera control button I already mentioned, right? Okay, so the 48 megapixel ultra-wide camera, I mean, it had a slightly better chipset, I guess, and okay, this video's purpose is not to talk about how little changed with the 16 Pro, and the 17 Pro isn't exactly the biggest upgrade ever itself, even if the redesign does help give the phone its own identity. The telephoto camera lens is probably the second most notable change after the redesign, along with all the other camera improvements, including the selfie camera upgrades, which are quite significant. And realistically, I think photography is the reason most people will buy this phone, so let's talk about it. The 16 Pro featured a 12 megapixel 5x zoom telephoto lens, as did my 15 Pro Max, whereas the 17 Pro brings in a 48 megapixel 4x zoom telephoto lens that can crop into 12 megapixels for an 8x zoom, just like how the main 48 megapixel wide lens can crop from a 1x to 2x zoom. Rounded out with the 48 megapixel ultra wide lens, the $1,100 17 Pro boasts the ultimate trifecta on the rear, versus the $1,000 iPhone Air with its single wide lens and the $800 $17 with the 48 megapixel wide and ultra wide lenses. If you want the best photos possible and the most versatility you can get when capturing them, it is hard to go wrong with the iPhone 17 Pro. We get this amazing optical zoom range from 0.5x all the way to 8x, and it's a fantastic setup, and we'll take a look at some photos I've taken shortly, but first, I do want to talk about the camera control button. It is certainly there, and truthfully, I've barely used it. I still need to develop muscle memory to remember to actually put my finger there, and if anything, I found it to be kind of more of a nuisance than anything else. I've pressed the button by accident far too many times when just picking up or holding the phone, which brings me to the camera app immediately. Thankfully, you can change this in settings to be a double click instead of a single click to get you to the camera, so that is much better. And once actually in the camera app, I can see this button actually being useful. Maybe the more I use the phone, the more I'll get used to using it. It's possible, but it's still not exactly a groundbreaking feature. Holding down the camera control button brings up visual intelligence, and I haven't really talked about Apple Intelligence in this video. Not by intention, but it's more indicative of my actual experience with the phone. It's just not something I really use. I've used visual intelligence exactly one time to identify a fungus that was on my patio. And all the AI stuff, if it interests you, the 17 Pro is obviously going to be the best build to run it all, but Apple does have a long way to go in the AI department in terms of actually making it useful. Now, outside of all of that, my experience thus far has been absolutely stellar, as you would expect, and this device is undoubtedly capable of capturing some of the best pictures any smartphone has ever produced. I don't really put any stock into figuring out which phone has the actual best camera, personally, whether it be Pixel, Galaxy, iPhone, or whatever else. These phones are all so good nowadays that I think you can be pretty confident that what you're getting is going to be really good, and that's definitely the case here. What's also easy to overlook is just how much better the selfie camera is this year. This is an upgrade that came to all of the new iPhone 17 models, not exclusive to the Pro, but it is here, and it's very good, with stunning 18 megapixel photos and really crisp 4K video that can be even filmed in ProRes RAW if you really want to.
This is being filmed on the iPhone 17 Pro's selfie camera, and it's pretty good. Very impressive. Very impressive, I gotta say.
I haven't really messed around with ProRes RAW yet. It's something you're going to need a good external SSD for. And it is a cool feature, but I'm lazy. I find it easier to record straight from the default camera app without going into log or RAW, and I've been pretty happy even with a quick few B-roll shots I've had in recent videos. On the whole, video is better than ever here, and if you're a creator or are thinking about getting into it, I would wager there is no better smartphone for video than the iPhone 17 Pro right now. But photos. Some of these were actually taken by a good friend of mine, William, who also got the 17 Pro, and I'll link his channel in the description. Some really nice shots taken around the Toronto area. Go Blue Jays, by the way. I don't really have a lot to say here. The quality is going to be among the best in class, and what I'm really loving about this phone thus far is the consistency among all three lenses. One thing I always noticed on my 15 Pro Max was that the ultra-wide felt like the lowest quality cam of the bunch. The 5x zoom lens was pretty decent, but it was the 48 megapixel main wide lens that I would find myself using in the vast majority of situations. Now with the 17 Pro, assuming the camera app is correctly switching to the lens that I want to use, as it often does not do, by the way, and is very frustrating. It would be probably better to use a third-party app that lets you control that. And sometimes you might be on 4x, but it's actually using the main wide lens, so watch out for that. But generally speaking, I feel like I can use any three of the lenses and still get consistently great results across the board. No matter the lighting condition, this phone just seems to almost always deliver. It can be difficult to get pictures of my dog because she likes to move around so much, but even when there's movement and a bit of blur, I found the photos often still hold up regardless. And that selfie camera being as good as it is, in combination with the 48 megapixel trifecta on the rear and a plethora of included Pro features to boot, like ProRes RAW. Again, maybe this isn't the best smartphone camera on the market, period, but I think it can very well be argued it's kind of the ultimate overall package when you're taking into account both stills and video from front to back. Ultimately, my experience with the 17 Pro has been about everything I expected. I am disappointed in the apparent lack of durability with this device, especially considering how hard Apple was pushing that aspect of the phone in their presentation, though the scratch-resistant front glass does seem to be the real deal, so props to them for that. And everything else is ostensibly great. Stellar cameras, pristine performance, all in a fun, new, orange package. I think my biggest complaints with this phone have more to do with iOS 26 and how buggy it's been for me thus far. far, but admittedly the vast majority of glitches I've come across are merely visual and don't typically affect the user experience. They are annoying, but not much more than that, and iOS 18 also had its fair share of graphical bugs. So I'll assume that Apple will fix that all eventually, hopefully, and in any case, the 17 Pro truly feels like a Pro phone. It wasn't so long ago that I used the Galaxy Z Fold 7, and it was a radically different experience, but one that still felt it lacked the polish and refinement that I've always enjoyed on the iPhone side. The hardware was stunning, but I just couldn't ever see myself switching. One UI, it ain't my thing, though I would potentially be interested in Apple's interpretation of a foldable, and I suspect we may see one soon next year. Maybe that's the direction we're going. The thinness of the iPhone Air does feel like an experiment leading up to it. If there's a foldable next year from Apple, I'm sure it'll cost at least $2,000, and maybe I'll buy it, maybe not, but I am curious to see how I feel about my 17 Pro a year from now, because I really loved my 15 Pro Max a lot. I mean, it's a little smaller, but aside from that, I mean, it's got better battery life, a decent upgrade in cameras, kind of a smoother overall experience, as is common with phones that are brand new, and hey, of course, that beautiful cosmic orange color. While some things like the camera control button right now I'm not really using, I think a year from now I'm gonna still be pretty happy with this phone, and if the 18 Pro doesn't change much, like the 16 Pro, then there's a good chance I don't end up upgrading. I guess we'll have to wait and see. The 17 Pro represents a new direction for Apple's Pro line of iPhones moving forward. The iPhone Air gets the fancy design, the 17 Pro pushes for function over form. Apple needs to change things a bit. Right now, the iPhone Air carries severe compromise outside of just raw horsepower. It has less camera lenses than an iPhone $200 cheaper, but at the same time, it's easily the most beautifully designed iPhone available right now. It's weird to see the Pro iPhone not bringing a design I would consider beautiful, but then again, we've seen Apple do this before. MacBook Pros, back in I believe 2016, brought this unbelievably slim and gorgeous design, but it was impractical, USB-C only, and highly flawed with issues like the keyboard and thermals in the following years. So Apple in 2021 completely overhauled the MacBook Pro's design, and what we got was, in my eyes, not as beautiful. It's still nice, and I actually do like the notch, but it's boxier, thicker, a bit more plain. It's more industrial, and most critically, better built for Pro performance. The 17 Pro for me kind of falls into the same boat. The only issue is there's very little I do with my phone that actually requires that Pro performance. It's an intriguing dichotomy for these devices, balancing form and function, and while I can't confidently say that Apple's new direction will 100% work out for them in the future, I am very curious to see where it goes from here. All in all, I love the iPhone 17 Pro, but unless you really want that third camera lens, the iPhone 17 makes way more sense. It has the 120Hz display, it's got 2 camera lenses, it's 256 gigs, and it's only $800 US. Relatively speaking, that's pretty dang good. But with that, I think I'm right about done here. If you found this video interesting or helpful, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. Huge thank you to Ugreen for sponsoring this video, and shout out to the channel members for continuing to support the channel. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. It means the world to me. And thank you all for watching. I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and I will see you all next time.